August 15th, 1966. 20th Century Fox Studios, Paris. Stage 7. Audrey Hepburn stands opposite Peter O'Toole in an elegant Parisian art gallery set. They're filming How to Steal a Million. She's 37 years old. He's 34. They should be Hollywood's golden couple, two legends at their peak, making a sophisticated caper film. Instead, it's 2 p.m. and Peter O'Toole is drunk. Again. Not tipsy, not loose, drunk, slurring his lines, swaying on his feet, struggling to remember where he's supposed to stand. The crew exchanges glances. This is day 43 of filming, and day 43 of Peter O'Toole arriving on set intoxicated. Director William Wyler calls action for the 7th time. The scene is simple. O'Toole's character, Simon Dermott, is supposed to charm Audrey's character, Nicole, into trusting him with an elaborate art theft. Romantic banter, sophisticated flirtation, easy dialogue for two accomplished actors. O'Toole begins his line. "My dear Nicole, I think we can pull this off if..." He stops, blinks, looks around confused. "What's my line?" Audrey maintains her smile, professional, patient. This is the 7th take of the same scene, each one ruined by O'Toole's condition. "Simon thinks they can steal the statue," the script supervisor whispers. O'Toole nods, tries again. "Nicole, my darling, we can steal the... Another pause, more confusion. Audrey watches him struggle. Inside, she's dying. This man, this brilliant, charismatic actor she'd admired for years, is destroying himself with alcohol and destroying their film in the process. "Cut!" Wyler calls. His voice is tired, frustrated. It's been 6 weeks of this. 6 weeks of Peter O'Toole stumbling through scenes, forgetting lines, arriving hours late, reeking of whiskey. Audrey walks to her dressing room, sits down, looks at herself in the mirror. She's wearing a gorgeous Givenchy gown. Her hair is perfect, her makeup flawless. She looks like a movie star. But she feels like a babysitter, a very expensive, very patient babysitter. This is the story nobody wanted to tell, the chaos behind one of Audrey's most elegant films. The 6 months she spent carrying a movie, while her co-star drank himself into oblivion. The professionalism that saved a production, and the alcoholism that nearly destroyed it. To understand what happened on the How to Steal a Million set, you need to understand Peter O'Toole in 1966, and what alcohol had already done to him. Peter O'Toole was 34 years old and at the height of his career. Lawrence of Arabia had made him a global superstar 4 years earlier. He was nominated for Academy Awards. He was brilliant, magnetic, one of the most talented actors of his generation. He was also an alcoholic, not a social drinker, not someone who enjoyed a few too many at parties, a genuine, clinical alcoholic who drank from morning to night, vodka for breakfast, whiskey between takes, champagne for dinner. He'd been drinking heavily since his early 20s. By 1966, it was completely out of control. O'Toole's drinking was legendary in Hollywood. Not legendary in a glamorous way, legendary in a terrifying way. He'd been fired from productions, had collapsed on sets, had been hospitalized multiple times for alcohol poisoning. But he was Peter O'Toole. When you're that talented, that charismatic, that box office valuable, studios make exceptions. They enable. They cover up. They pretend everything's fine. 20th Century Fox knew about O'Toole's drinking when they cast him opposite Audrey. How could they not know? It was an open secret in Hollywood. But the script was perfect for him. Charming art thief, sophisticated criminal, debonair leading man. Nobody else could play Simon Dermott. And besides, they reasoned, working with Audrey Hepburn would keep him in line. She was class, elegance, professionalism. Surely O'Toole would respect that. Surely he'd stay sober for Audrey. They were wrong. The problem started immediately. First day of filming, March 1966. O'Toole was supposed to arrive at 8 a.m. for makeup and wardrobe. He showed up at 11:30, already drunk, claiming he'd been researching his character at a wine bar. Audrey was waiting in her dressing room, ready to work. She'd been up since 6 a.m. Hair, makeup, wardrobe fittings. She was prepared. Professional, expecting the same from her co-star. Instead, she watched Peter O'Toole stumble onto the soundstage, squinting at the lights, asking loudly, "Where's the bloody coffee? And make it Irish." Irish coffee. At 11:30 in the morning, on the first day of filming, William Wyler, the director, was 64 years old, a Hollywood legend. He'd directed Roman Holiday with Audrey 13 years earlier. He'd won 3 Academy Awards. He didn't have patience for alcoholic actors. These forgotten stories deserve to be told. If you think so too, subscribe and like this video. Thank you for keeping these memories alive, but he also didn't have a choice. The film was already in production. O'Toole was already cast. Backing out would cost millions. So Wyler made adjustments. Shorter shooting days, later call times, handlers to manage O'Toole's condition. "We'll work around it," he told the producers. "Peter's still a brilliant actor, even drunk." The first week was manageable. O'Toole was drunk, but functional. He'd forget lines occasionally, need extra takes, but he could still deliver. The charm was still there, even slurred. Audrey adapted. She memorized not just her lines, but his lines too. When O'Toole forgot what he was supposed to say, she'd feed him cues, subtle, professional, making it look natural. "You were saying about the museum security?" she'd prompt, when O'Toole lost track mid-sentence. The crew noticed immediately. Audrey wasn't just acting her part. She was acting his part too, carrying scenes, covering for his mistakes, making him look better than he deserved. Week 2. The drinking got worse. O'Toole would arrive with a thermos of coffee that smelled like whiskey. During lunch breaks, he'd disappear to local bars, return even more intoxicated than before. The romantic scenes became impossible. How do you create chemistry with someone who can barely stand? How do you look lovingly into eyes that are bloodshot and unfocused? How do you kiss someone who tastes like alcohol at 2 p.m.? Audrey managed it, somehow. She'd look at O'Toole during romantic scenes and find something to love. Not the drunk man in front of her, but the actor underneath. The talent drowning in alcohol. "I see the person you could be," she told him once, between takes. "That's who I'm acting with." O'Toole, in a rare moment of clarity, understood. "You're too good for this," he said. "Too good for me." "You're not a bad person, Peter," Audrey replied gently. "You're a sick person. There's a difference." But compassion didn't solve the practical problems. The film was falling behind schedule. O'Toole's condition was getting worse. The crew was demoralized, and Audrey was exhausted from carrying everything. The breaking point came in week 4. They were filming the museum heist sequence. Complex choreography, precise timing, multiple camera angles. The scene where Nicole and Simon worked together to steal the statue. O'Toole was supposed to disable the alarm system while Audrey distracted the guards. Simple scene. Basic action beats. They'd rehearsed it dozens of times. Action, Wyler called. Audrey performed her part flawlessly, walked to the guard station, engaged them in conversation. Perfect timing, perfect blocking. O'Toole stumbled to the alarm panel, stared at it confused, pressed random buttons, set off the actual alarm, not the fake one for the scene. The real museum security system. Sirens blared. Red lights flashed. The entire soundstage erupted in chaos. Security guards rushed in. It took 20 minutes to explain that it was an accident, to reset the system, to calm everyone down. O'Toole sat in a corner, head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry." Audrey sat beside him, put her hand on his shoulder. "Peter, you need help." "I know," he whispered. "But I can't stop. I've tried. I can't stop." That night, Audrey called William Wyler. "We need to do something about Peter. This can't continue." Wyler sighed. "What do you suggest? Fire him? The film's half finished. Get him help. Medical help. Professional help. He won't agree to rehab. His contract doesn't allow forced treatment. We're stuck." So they were stuck for 2 more months. 60 more days of Peter O'Toole arriving drunk, forgetting lines, ruining takes, and Audrey Hepburn compensating for all of it. The most embarrassing incident happened during the film's romantic climax. The scene where Simon confesses his love for Nicole. Intimate, emotional, the heart of the entire film. O'Toole was supposed to say, "Nicole, I've been a thief my whole life. But you're the first thing I've ever wanted to keep." Beautiful line, romantic, meaningful. Instead, O'Toole said, "Nicole, I've been what's my bloody line?" Audrey tried to help. "You've been a thief." "Right. Nicole, I've been a thief, and you're... He swayed on his feet, grabbed the nearby table for support. "You're the first thing I've ever wanted to... He looked confused, lost. "To keep," Audrey whispered. "To keep!" "Yes!" O'Toole declared triumphantly, then immediately forgot where he was in the scene. "What happens next?" Wyler called cut. The 20th take of the day, Audrey excused herself, went to the bathroom, cried for 5 minutes, then fixed her makeup and returned to set. "Let's try again," she said professionally. Always professional. The crew watched this happen day after day, week after week. They saw Audrey Hepburn, one of the biggest stars in the world, reduced to managing an alcoholic co-star. They saw her carry scenes, cover for his mistakes, make excuses for his behavior. Script supervisor Meta Rebner later wrote in her memoirs, "Audrey was a saint during that production. Any other actress would have demanded O'Toole's replacement. Audrey just worked harder, made everyone else's job easier, never complained once." But the stress was showing. Audrey lost weight, developed insomnia, started smoking more heavily. The elegant, composed woman everyone knew was cracking under the pressure of carrying an entire film. Her assistant Gisela noticed the changes. Miss Hepburn wasn't sleeping. She'd pace her dressing room between takes, chain-smoke cigarettes. She was worried about Peter, but also worried about the film, about disappointing everyone. The financial pressure was enormous. How to Steal a Million had a budget of $6 million. Massive for 1966. Every day, O'Toole was drunk cost tens of thousands in delays, reshoots, overtime. 20th Century Fox executives started visiting the set, demanding explanations, threatening legal action against O'Toole. Audrey found herself defending him. "Peter's ill," she told studio head Daryl Zanuck. "He needs compassion, not threats." "He needs sobriety," Zanuck replied coldly. "Can you guarantee that?" Audrey couldn't, because O'Toole's drinking was getting worse, not better. Week 8, they were filming the final romantic scene. Simon and Nicole, having successfully stolen the statue, celebrate their victory and their love. Happy ending, sophisticated, charming. O'Toole arrived 3 hours late, so drunk he couldn't remember Audrey's name, called her darling because he couldn't recall Nicole, kept reaching for a flask hidden in his jacket pocket. The scene required him to waltz with Audrey. Simple choreography, basic steps. They'd rehearsed it the day before, but drunk Peter O'Toole couldn't waltz, could barely walk. He stepped on Audrey's feet repeatedly, nearly knocked her over twice. During one take, he actually fell down, just collapsed mid-scene. Audrey helped him up, steadied him, looked directly into his glassy eyes, and said, "Peter, I believe in you. I believe you can do this." Something in her voice reached him, the kindness, the faith. For just a moment, O'Toole sobered up, not physically, but emotionally. He straightened up, focused, did the scene perfectly. One take, perfect waltz, beautiful acting. The romantic chemistry finally worked. Then, as soon as Wyler called cut, O'Toole collapsed again. The effort of one sober scene had exhausted him. That was Peter O'Toole in 1966. Moments of brilliance drowning in oceans of alcohol. Filming wrapped in September 1966. 6 months of chaos. 6 months of Audrey compensating for O'Toole's drinking. 6 months of the most unprofessional production of her career. At the wrap party, O'Toole approached Audrey privately. He was drunk, of course, but trying to be sincere. "Audrey," he said, slurring slightly, "I owe you everything. You saved this film. You saved me." "I hope you'll save yourself, Peter," she replied gently. "I'll try," he promised. "I'll really try." He didn't. Not for years. O'Toole continued drinking heavily throughout the 1970s. His career suffered. His health deteriorated. He had multiple hospitalizations, liver damage, stomach problems. He finally got sober in 1979, 13 years after How to Steal a Million. 13 years too late to apologize properly to Audrey. But by then, she'd moved on. Professionally, personally. The experience had taught her something important. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can only decide whether to enable their destruction or protect yourself. How to Steal a Million was released in August 1967. Despite the chaotic production, it was a success. Critics praised the sophisticated script, the gorgeous costumes, the elegant direction, and they especially praised Audrey's performance. "Luminous," wrote the New York Times. "Effortlessly charming," said Variety. "Carries the entire film with grace and wit," noted The Hollywood Reporter. Nobody mentioned that she'd literally carried the entire film. That her effortless charm had required enormous effort. That her graceful performance had happened despite, not because of, her co-star. Peter O'Toole received mixed reviews. Some critics noticed his sluggish delivery. his lack of energy, his disconnected performance. Others attributed it to sophisticated European acting style. O'Toole was nominated for nothing, won nothing. The film was Audrey's triumph, not his. At the premiere, photographers wanted pictures of the two stars together. Audrey posed graciously. O'Toole, slightly drunk even at his own premiere, kept his distance. If you want more untold stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your support means everything to us. When a reporter asked about their working relationship, Audrey was diplomatic. Peter is incredibly talented. It was a privilege working with him. O'Toole's response was more honest. Audrey's a professional. I tried to match her level. Translation, she was professional. I was drunk. In 1982, 16 years later, Peter O'Toole finally addressed his alcoholism publicly. In interviews promoting My Favorite Year, he talked openly about his drinking, the chaos it caused, the careers it damaged. I was drunk for 15 years, he admitted. Not just tipsy, drunk, every day. It's a miracle I didn't kill myself or someone else. When asked about specific films affected by his drinking, he mentioned How to Steal $1 Million. Audrey Hepburn saved that film, he said. I was useless, completely useless. She carried everything, the scenes, the dialogue, the emotion. I showed up drunk, and she made it work anyway. Do you regret anything about that experience? Everything. I regret all of it. Audrey deserved better. The film deserved better. I was sick and I made everyone else sick too. Audrey never spoke publicly about O'Toole's drinking, never complained about the production difficulties, never blamed him for the chaos. Even in later interviews, she remained gracious. Peter was going through a difficult time, she'd say diplomatically. We all have difficult times. That was Audrey. Protecting others even when they'd failed to protect her. But privately, the experience changed her. She became more careful about co-star selections, more protective of her time and energy. She'd learned, compassion is admirable. Enabling is destructive. Peter O'Toole died in 2013 at age 81. Liver failure. Despite getting sober in 1979, the decades of drinking had permanent effects. His body never fully recovered. At his memorial service, colleagues spoke about his talent, his charm, his brilliance when sober. Several mentioned How to Steal $1 Million, not the chaos, but O'Toole's regret about it. He never forgave himself for that film, said longtime friend Michael Caine, not for being drunk, for disappointing Audrey. That haunted him. Audrey had died 20 years earlier in 1993. She never lived to see O'Toole's full sobriety, never heard his complete apology, never knew how much he'd regretted those 6 months of drunken chaos. But maybe she didn't need to know. Audrey had moved on. She'd learned what she could control, her own professionalism, and what she couldn't control, someone else's disease. Watch How to Steal $1 Million today. Watch the romantic scenes between Audrey and O'Toole. See if you can spot the moments where she's covering for him, feeding him lines, compensating for his condition. You can't. That's how good she was, how professional, how completely she carried that production. Peter O'Toole arrived drunk every day for 6 months. Audrey Hepburn acted sober and made everyone believe they were watching a charming romantic caper, not a desperate attempt to salvage a disaster. That's not just acting. That's heroism. The film's title was How to Steal $1 Million. But the real theft was subtler. Peter O'Toole stole 6 months of Audrey's career. 6 months of chaos and stress and enabling behavior. And Audrey? She stole the show. Despite everything. Through everything. She made magic out of disaster. That's the story they didn't want to tell. The price of working with an alcoholic. The cost of carrying someone else's disease. But also the proof that real professionals can create beauty even in chaos, can find truth even in dysfunction, can make art even when their partner is falling apart. Audrey Hepburn did that. For 6 months, every day. With grace, dignity, and perfect professionalism. While Peter O'Toole was drunk, Audrey was brilliant. And somehow, that was enough. This is Audrey Hepburn. The Hidden Truth. From wartime horrors to Hollywood secrets, we uncover what they've been hiding for decades. Subscribe to discover the dark truth behind the elegant image.